Tina Cooks More Italian.
This is made possible through the generous support of KC's Body Connections Massage Center, connecting body, mind, and spirit. G's Hot Dog Cafe, home of the Chicago Dog. Enterprise Bank, we help create opportunities for your business. Papa John's Pizza, Leominster, Fitchburg, Marlborough, and Worcester. Welcome to Tina Cooks More Italian. Some of my fondest memories were in the backyard in our grapevine. We had Concord grapes. Today I'm going to show you what I do with the Concord grapes. Stay tuned, we'll be making jelly. These are delicious, Carl. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to wash off our grapes real good. Now, those of you that have a grapevine, you're very lucky. I have to buy my grapes, which is good too. I'm going to make sure these are nice and rinsed, okay? Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take them and I'm going to pluck them off and I'm going to put them in this pot. Okay. You're going to leave the shell on, everything, just pluck. This is the best part of making the jelly. Now, when I was younger, our backyard was our hideaway. We had grapes and we had a wonderful vegetable garden. My father was one of the best gardeners. And we would go, that was our hideaway. Whenever we wanted to hide, we would go in the grapevines and we would sit. I think my grandfather designed it with little seats because up in the trees there'd be places where you could just sit and either eat a pear or grapes. Oh, but we didn't just eat the grapes. We used to have grape fights. We used to have a lot of fun. We even experimented with wine when we were kids because we wanted to try it. One time, me and my brother Thomas and my sister Debbie, and I think my cousin Angela and Christina, and we used to pick the grapes, and we used to do our own little wine fermentations. I don't think we ever drank it though. We tried a few times, but it was just kind of scary because we really didn't know what we were doing at the young age we used to try to make wine. But it was definitely our little hideaway, and I definitely miss those years. We had a lot of good times in those grapevines. Don't get any stems in there. The stems won't taste good. What I like to do is I like to take some of my juice and I like to freeze it because I don't make all my jelly all at once. I like to make juice with it, fruit juice or something around the holidays. You don't want bad grapes. Those won't make your jelly taste good. And but a lot of times I freeze it and I use it as I need it. I don't make like 20 jars of jelly all at once. I make a batch, and then when that runs out, I make a batch. I like it fresh. You need about 8 to 10 cups of grapes to make 4 cups of good juice to make jelly. So what I do is when I do my grapes and I'm finished with my juice, I pour it into containers and freeze it in 4 cups or maybe 5 cups, because a lot of times you'll find sediment on the bottom of your juice, which I'll show you when we strain the juice. Okay, so we should be all set there. This is all of our grapes. Now I'm going to take my trusty masher and I'm going to mash my grapes real good, because you want to get them out of the skins. Actually, you don't have to mash them, but I always did, so I'm going to. Plus, it gives it a little bit of juice to start out with, because you're only going to add about a cup of water in here. You're not going to add more than that, because then it will dilute your grape juice. You could add some wine if you wanted. I've never tried it with wine, but I'm sure it'll be good. Grape jelly and wine, wow. I'll have to try that someday. Okay. So now that I have that mashed, I'm going to get a measuring cup. And I am going to put 1 cup of cold water in here. I always use a cup. That's all you need. Okay? Now, we're not adding sugar or anything to this. We're just going to boil it just as it is. Okay? Take the skins off, because believe it or not, a lot of the flavor is in the skins. Now, I want you to see how this looks now, because after it's boiled out, all the green is going to be melted away. It's going to be in juice, and you're just going to have the leftover skins and the seeds. So we're going to cover this up, and we're going to put it on the stove. We're going to put it on high. Now this is going to come to a boil. Now the thing you don't want to do is boil it so hot it all evaporates. So what you're going to do is you're going to put on your cover, and you're going to lower it down to a simmer where it's still boiling but not hot, hot, hot. And you're going to let it boil for 20 to 25 minutes. And we'll be back. Okay, first thing we have to do when we're going to strain our juice, I like to strain it before. I know there's people that just cool it and strain it after, but I like to strain it before, because when I make grape juice, I like to make it, put it in the refrigerator, and after it cools, and let it set. And as I'm making the jelly, I'll show you the sediment on the bottom of the juice, because you don't want that in your jelly. So we're going to cut some cheesecloth. Okay. And you want a good layer of cheesecloth. Of course, these scissors, you need to have them sharpened, I think, Carl. They just don't cut anymore. Okay, so I'm going to open this up, I think, if I can. Yeah, because I like to have it so that it's over everything. You don't want it to, you know, not be long enough and you lose it in there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece and I'm going to lay it in the bottom so that all the seeds and stuff don't go through. But it will let some sediment through. That's why I don't like to. So see how we did that? You want to have enough room to be able to grab your cheesecloth. Now I'm going to lower this in the sink. Well, maybe I won't, because I want you to see it. Now this has been boiling about 20-25 minutes. Well, it smells good. It looks good. All right, let's see how hot this is. Not too bad. Now we're going to pour. You want to go nice and easy, because this stuff is not only hot, but it stains. So, beautiful. See all that, there's all the seeds and all the skins and all that. So you want to keep this up. And that's going to just go through. And I'm just going to let it drip through. Sometimes I take a little spoon let me get a spoon, Carl. Like this. You don't want to move it around too much, because you don't want to move the cheesecloth. Sometimes if you just go in the middle, it'll loosen up all the skins and seeds so that the juice can go through. But just let it strain through. Take its time. And then after it cools off a little bit, you can pick the corners up. And usually what I do is I try to twist it around. I'll show you as it's draining. So it's amazing how all those grapes, believe it or not, are just going to barely make 4 cups of juice. By the time this is done straining, I'm going to have just about 4 cups of juice, which is just enough for a batch of jelly. So we're going to let this strain, because it's going to take a few minutes, and I don't want to push it around too much because I don't want to wreck the cheesecloth. And we'll be back. Okay, now this has been draining, and it's a cooler than it was. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to twist it, and I'm going to twist it and press, and twist it and press a little bit. You could use a spoon if you wanted to. because I don't want to squeeze it too hard because I don't want sediment to come out. Or I don't want the skins to come out of the seed. And I do let this sit here for a while, and every once in a while I'll go by and I'll squeeze it. Because I want to have at least 4.5 cups or so that I can skim and do what I need to do. And that's your grape juice. All right, now that we've made our juice, we have to do our jars. Now the jar, it's very important for you to check your jars. Make sure there's no chips or any rough edges or anything, because these are going to be canned. Now we're going to wash the jars, we're going to check them out, and we're going to boil them about 10 minutes because they have to be sterile. Now once they're boiled, you're going to leave them in the water because you don't want to take them out. You want them to stay in the nice sterile water. So we're going to start by washing our jars out and making sure that there's no chips or anything. Then we're going to put them in our pot. Now if you notice, I have different jars. I have these cute little decorative jars that you can use and put in gift baskets or wrap up for Christmas, which I've done a few times, give them away as gifts. Of course, my son usually eats all the jelly, so we don't give away too many. But if you have a grapevine or something, it's nice to make a little extra jelly. Now these jars have all been through my dishwasher, because I always dishwash them, but it's just a habit to make sure that they're clean, because you put them in your cabinets, and you know, I use them a couple times a year, so I like to make sure they're clean, even though they've been cleaned and put in the cabinet. Okay, now we're just going to fill this with water. Okay. Now that we have this filled with water, I'm going to put our cover on and put this on the stove. But before I start it up, actually I'm going to put on my heat. Come on, baby. And then what I have to do here also is add my lids, because these lids have to also be clean. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 small lids. And I buy these every time I make jelly. I don't reuse them. So I have 2. I have 4 small, and I have 3 big. I don't think I'm going to need all those jars, but we're going to do them anyways, just in case. 3. Okay, so we're going to bring those to a boil too. So we have our jars and our lids getting nice and sterilized. And I'm going to get ready for the jelly now. Those are 2 of the most influential people in my life, my mother and my Auntie Sunny, Marama. Now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to need 4 cups of grape juice. Now the reason I like to do my juice ahead of time, because you're going to see as I'm pouring off, there's going to be sediment in the bottom. See it in the bottom of this thing? You don't want it in your grape juice. I did use a cheesecloth and I did strain, but you're still going to have, and I'm going nice and slow because I don't want to disturb it at all. Okay? That's why I like to leave a little extra, like 5 cups when you pour. Now that's a perfect 4 cup. Now, this is what I'm talking about. All this sediment. This will cloud your juice. It's just not good for your jelly. Okay? So we're going to get rid of it. Now when you're working with grape juice, grape jelly, it stains everything. So be careful. You don't want to be dripping it on your counters if they stain easy. So I'm going to throw this in my sink. We're going to pour this in here. Okay. Wonderful. Now that's the grape juice. Now that's a concentrated juice. Doesn't have anything in it. It's just grape juice. We're going to add 7 cups of sugar. Now 7 cups of sugar sounds like a lot, but it's really not, because you get 5, 6 jars of jelly, and basically you use probably a tablespoon or so at a time. Now I'm just going to mix this in just a little bit before I turn the heat on, because I don't want the sugar to be in lumps. Okay, I want it to just go right in. I have made this with 6 cups of sugar, so that you don't have to use as much, but I'm following the recipe today. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of lemon juice because I think it helps the flavor of the grapes to come out, and it cuts that sugary taste. So I'm going to see what... I use about a tablespoon or so. I'm going to use a little more because that's not quite enough for me. This is about, I don't know, I would say it's about a tablespoon or so. And I'm just going to drizzle that in there like that. That's going to just give it a little, it picks up all the flavors. It really does. Now we're going to turn this on. We're going to put it on, I got it on 4 or 5, which is like a medium high. You don't want it to boil real fast because that's not going to, I like to skim my juice as I'm making my jelly. I like to skim it because foam will come up and stuff will come out of it. It gives you a clearer jelly. You don't have a cloudy jelly. So now it's just a matter of time of bringing this up to temperature. We have our grape juice, our sugar, and our lemon in here. And that's going to just come up to a boil, and then we're going to start skimming, and we're going to use, let me just reach in here 1 second, Carl. I like to use Certo. It's a liquid pectin, okay? And this is what firms up your jelly. I'm not real fond of the powders. I think it makes a cloudier jelly, but this pectin it's a nice, I've always used the Certo pectin because I like it. Okay, so we're going to just stir this and we're going to wait for it to come to a boil. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to squish up this pectin and make sure it's kind of like mixed up. Okay? Then I'm going to get a measuring glass, and I'm going to put the pectin in the measuring glass because I want to be able to grab this and not have to worry about opening it when I need it. And you want to make sure that your pectin's nice and you can get it out. And it's open. That's all cut all the way through. Now the next thing I want to do is I want to start skimming my juice. By that I mean, if you look over here, you're going to see all this stuff coming up. I don't want this in my jelly. So I'm going to skim it because this will make your jelly cloudy. And I don't like cloudy jelly. And I'm just going to dump it right into here. And as this gets hot and comes to a boil, more of this you're going to want to skim this off because you want your jelly nice and clean and clear. Now you also want to keep stirring this every so often. You don't want to, once the juice starts to get really hot, you don't want to just walk away from it. You want to stay with this. Now this has to come to a boil that you cannot stir down. Okay? So you got to make sure that it's boiling nice and hard. And when you stir it, it's still going to boil a little bit. This process probably takes about 20 minutes, half an hour. Probably more like 20 minutes. If you want to cook it a little faster, you can cook it a little faster. It's just that you might not have the opportunity to skim the top of the jelly as much. Now this is a boil that I cannot stir down, okay? See how it's still boiling no matter how much you stir it, it's still boiling. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our Certo. Now you want to make sure you blend the Certo in as you go. It's going to bring the boiling down and it's going to clean up the jelly. Make sure you squeeze it all in there, get it all out like that. Now it's important that you stir this and you bring it back up to a boil, because if you don't continue to stir this and melt all that Certo, and you're going to have clumps of Certo that is going to just clog up your jelly. It won't be nice and smooth. So we're just going to keep blending this in. I'm trying to get that little bit that I dropped on my spoon. Now I'm going to time this about a minute. It needs to come back up to a boil. Now you can see the difference in the color already. Okay. Now that I mix that in, I'm going to let it come back up to a boil. Now at this point, I'm going to time it a minute. Okay? I usually count to 60. Okay, so now we're going to shut this off. Okay, and we do have to move over to the sink. Now the first thing I'm going to move is my jars. Okay, and I'm going to set them in the sink. Okay, and there they are, nice and hot and ready to go. Then I'm going to take my jelly and I'm going to put this over here. Now I'm going to set this aside because this hot water is going to help me. All right, first I'm going to strain this because I got to see the stuff here. You want to get this off. This is going to make your jelly cloudy. Okay. Okay, now what I'm doing is I'm getting a nice clean towel because I'm going to have to wipe the edges if I get any on here. Now, basically what I like to do is I like to pull these out. These are canning tongs, and they're great for canning, but picking these up out of here, I think it's hot water and it's kind of hard to do. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my lids and I'm going to make sure that they separate over here. I'm going to take out my glass jars one at a time. Now these things are very hot, so you want to try to not burn yourself. And it's very easy to burn yourself when you're doing jelly. I'm going to take these out and I'm going to set them up. I like to tip them over. Oh, that one's got those little covers in it, which is a bummer. Oh man, this stuff always happens to me. Here we go. Ow, 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 ow. Very hot. Now after they've been turned upside down, you want to do this. Then you want to take a little funnel because you don't want to get jelly on the edges of your jars. I'm going to stir this around a little bit. See, now your pectin's nice and mixed in because it's not all coagulating. And then you just go nice and easy because, like I said, this is very, very hot. You want to fill it to the rim right about there, because I'm not going to paraffin these, and I'm not going to wax them, okay? So what you do is you take your cover, you put it on nice and tight, like so, and you tip. Now as those cool, you're going to hear them pop, 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 like that. That means you got a good seal. That's what you want to hear. Yeah, the water is hot and burning my fingers off. Now I just want to take out enough to make sure, because I like to either just pour or just cover, not do both. I think that's going to be plenty myself, but we'll see. Alright, now I'm just going to fill. I have a towel down so that if I spill any on the counter, it's not going to stain it. That needs just a tish more because you want to bring it up past that little thing. You see how I just got grape jelly on there? I'm going to have to wipe that off before I seal it. Perfect. Now the good thing about boiling water and jelly, when you make jelly, is we didn't use these jars, which is fine. They're nice and sterile, but they're sterile for nothing. That's okay. You want to have enough rather than not enough, okay? So I'm just going to take the rest of these lids out because I do have to cap these and turn them, okay? And to clear the decks off, I'm going to take this boiling water. Of course, I can't get that little cap out of there. Stupid thing. All right. The thing about boiling water and jelly is this. You can just put them right in here, and all your jelly unsticks. Isn't that a great idea? Wonderful. Then you don't have to deal with that mess. Now, I gotta take my my clean cloth, take this out. Now, this didn't quite fill enough. So what I'll do is I will put this in the refrigerator after it cools, and that will be the first one I use. Now, I set these up. It takes a couple, at least overnight. You don't want them to make sure they're nice and tight before you tip them. You don't want to burn yourself. This jelly is like lava. Okay, so now we're gonna, of course it's not gonna go on, but there we go. Make sure they're nice and tight. Flip. That kills the bacteria in the top of the lid, believe it or not. I used the paraffin. I used to melt wax and put wax in here and everything else, and I just tip it, and it really does last a while because they'll seal. You'll hear them pop. Because if you notice, if you can see this, let me show you this because this is really hot. This cover is a little bit raised. When you tip it, it raises up. As it cools, it's going to pop down and it's going to seal. Really, it's really neat how it works. This one I'm not going to worry too much because we'll probably eat this one first. Okay, make sure it's nice and tight. Flip it over. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we got 5 jars of jelly. Okay, so we'll clean this up and we'll check out the jelly. This is the last of the jelly. That's why we did the jelly show. So now I'm gonna taste this jelly. I don't know about you, but I gotta have a little bit of peanut butter. I can eat just jelly, but what good is it without some peanut butter? I'm gonna spread our peanut butter. Clean off the knife on the good side. And then we're gonna take our jelly. Now look at this jelly, how nice and clear, and oh, it's so sweet. It's so good. All right, you ready now? This is the best part of the show. I get to taste what I made. Very good. I love jelly. This is the Jelly Show. Thank you for watching Tina Cooks, and have a good night.
Wait, hold it. I want to try some too.
You don't even like jelly.
I love jelly. Oh.
You're sticking your elbow in the bread. I'll tell you one thing. Adam's going to be happy when I call him and say I made jelly.
You know, folks, I don't know what the Italian word for jelly is. I don't even know if they have an Italian word for jelly. I'm sure they do, because I'm sure when the Italians are done making their vino with their leftover grapes, I'm sure they make jelly out of it, don't you think?
Well, if they haven't stepped on them already, sure, maybe.
That's true. Why didn't you step on the grapes when you were making the grape jelly?
I don't know, because my feet ain't clean. They're been in shoes all day. They might stink. You're eating my whole sandwich, you swine man. I gotta make myself another one now. Jeez. I said I'd share. I didn't say to eat the whole thing.